and the tree and the ravine that's there. It's just absolutely beautiful. You'd never believe that all that greenery is where it is. And yeah, so that's mainly what I do. Was there another question? I think
no, you've answered them all. Welcome back. I know you joined us from Portugal. Was it Portugal once? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Just a couple more before I read Dr. Ratey's. So David, Ellen Jones, you sounds like a movie star. David, welcome back.
Thanks. It's been a while. You haven't seen me because about a year ago I got back from working in Europe, and within a couple of weeks came down with COVID, and I've been only just kind of getting back to normal in the last month. So yeah, it's nice.
So your new normal, what kind of exercise you do once, you spend an hour on each week in the summer, David?
I've been running.
Every day, twice a week? Yeah.
I just listen to my body. Sometimes I go for a run and I'm good to go the next day. Sometimes I need a couple of days, but I just keep pushing and slowly getting back to my old normal.
Okay. Thanks for coming back. And I'm just going to say, Monica, you get the last word. Monica. It's from my favorite city. Monica from Waterloo. Where did you go? But okay. I'm just going to read a little bio. I just really, all kidding aside, my absolute favorite expert in the world is with us here tonight. It's such an honor. Everybody knows how to give, what do you call, the thumbs up or a clap. I just, there's so many, there's a few YouTube videos, but just to be here in, well, it seems like it's live, even though it's Zoom. But so Dr. Ratey has been a leading teacher and researcher on brain and personality and treatment of aggression and the development of disabilities and the psychological and cognitive benefits of exercise and play. He has written extensively on attention deficit disorder, learning disabilities, brain differences that affect social skills, and has published shadow syndromes. This book has helped broaden our understanding of how the brain affects everyday life. Dr. Ratey is the author or co-author of more than 85 scientific publications and 8 books, including Driven to Distraction and The User's Guide to Brain and Spark, The New Revolutionary Science of Exercise and the Brain and Go Wild, Free Your Body and Mind from the Afflictions of Civilization. Like all these books are must-reads. His latest book, ADHD 2.0, released in January it says 2020, but it's January of this year, 2021, was co-authored by Dr. Ned Hallowell. Also, I know he spent, was it 10 weeks, came back from in Hawaii. I've been to all 50 states, but Hawaii is my favorite. And I just learned a few weeks ago, he spent, I think, 10 weeks when he's doing his undergrad in philosophy as a monk, 10 weeks, I believe, in a silent retreat. But everybody, let's please warmly welcome our one and only Dr. Ratey. And so he's going to talk from, if it's okay with you, Dr. Ratey, 25 to 30 minutes. If any, and then the Q&A is always going for 35 minutes. But we'll try to keep the focus on topics he's about to share. But before you do that, Dr. Ratey, do you spend an hour in exercise? Is there any categories that you can answer? And as you introduce yourself, please.
Sure. I certainly walk every day. I get up to about 8,000 to 12,000 steps a day, but I also do kettlebells and occasionally do Zumba. But to start with, you have to let me share my screen, my friend.
Well, of course, I'm sorry. I'm just so tickled that you're with us today. Hey, Harris, are you there, Harris? because here's, just give me 1
He's a
minute.
co-host now.
Yeah, okay, he's a co-host. Thanks, Harris.
So open the file, press share screen, and then click the file.
Yeah,
Yeah, you made Dr. Okay, good.
share screen is, oh, okay, there we go. Okay, good, thank you. Open the file.
What state are you in right now, Dr. Ratey, if you don't mind me asking?
I am in California. We just got back from Michigan. So caring for my 91-year-old mother-in-law. But anyway, let me get started. Okay, a little bit of history. My interest in ADHD goes way, way back. In the 70s, but in the 70s and 80s, I was in training in Boston when the Boston Marathon was alive and well and starting with Bill Rogers. And anyway, it was a big deal. And I also was in training there and eventually became chief resident. And one of my students was Ned Hallowell. And we got together and realized we both had ADD, but I started seeing it in our inpatients, people that were admitted to the hospital, younger people in their 20s who had had a history of learning difficulties, ADHD as kids, but were no longer on medicine or no longer considered that they had ADHD. And so they were in for depression, aggression, substance abuse, or something else. And so, but I began to see it and talk about it. And I was talking about it at a cocktail party, and one guy said to me, "Can I come see you?" And he was a very renowned thinker and writer and a professor at Harvard and at MIT. And I said, sure, why not? And so we came in and he said, look, I've never had symptoms of ADHD. I've always been a runner. I've always been a marathoner, but I hurt my knee about 8 months ago. And since then I have all the symptoms of attention deficit disorder. This was back in an era when we didn't think adults had ADD. This was in 1982. That was the myth was that when you turned 16, your ADD went away, and that if you were on stimulants, that these then became addictive substances. And that's why so many of the kids that and later adults that I saw had been treated and treated well, but then had their ADD medicine taken away. And so they ended up with all kinds of other problems. So yes, so I treated him for his ADHD at that point. And then he began to rehab, or was in the process of rehabbing, eventually went back to running, and we continued to follow him, and we decided that he didn't need the medicine anymore because he was treating his ADHD by running his 7 miles a day. They were fast miles, by the way. He was someone who had it down to the seconds. Even in training. So, and this was a good way for him to self-medicate, if you will. Then, where are we? Okay. This is a lot of sequence here. Wait a minute. Okay. Like this. Okay. Then, so I was attuned to the fact that exercise was a really powerful treatment for brain issues, and started talking about it. And then this article in the 90s, really in Nature magazine or journal, got my interest in a big, big way. It was an article about Charles Cotman from the University of California at Irvine, who had been on a big study looking at what prevented the onset of Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline as we age. What were the factors that prevented this? And there were three. One was ideal weight. Two was continuous learning. And three was exercise. Well, we knew about the first two, but the exercise piece we were unaware of. So he went back to his lab and he decided he was going to check out what exercise really did for the brain. So he got a bunch of mice. Half of them, he taught them to run in the running wheel. The other half, they just lived normally. He tested them both before on what I call the IQ test for mice, but it was a bunch of different tests to see how smart they were. And then he had them run in their running wheels, those that had them, and they liked it. They liked running in their running wheels, and they ran on average about 4 kilometers a night, which is a long way for a little mouse with little legs, but they liked doing it. And this changed everything. They retook the test afterwards, and their scores went up about 50%. They were 50% smarter. Then they looked at their brains. They opened them up and saw that their top part of their brain, their cortex, was thicker. Even after 7 or 10 days, the brains were heavier. They weighed more. There was a part of their brain that was definitely bigger, the hippocampus, which is the center of memory and learning in the brain, but also the center of stress and anxiety control, because that's where all of most of our cortisol is bound in that little area. So, and also they measured a substance that we were just becoming enamored of called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and they found that the running mice had 200 to 300% greater numbers or greater concentration of BDNF in their brains than the non-running mice. So this led to a revolution in neuroscience and led me on my way to eventually write this book and learn about exercise and BDNF. It's a hugely important growth factor in the brain. It creates a lot of good stuff. It helps our brain cells grow. It helps them prosper. It helps increases their plasticity, increases our ability to make new brain cells, which we in part learned from all this research, that we make new brain cells. And if you're exercising, you increase your synaptic plasticity and you increase what we call neurogenesis, which means we make new brain cells every day from the stem cells that we have. And if you're active and not sitting on your butts, you will increase the number of new brain cells that you make. And also you reduce all the comorbid factors like blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and other things that make life ridiculous and make the US the leader in the world in COVID deaths. Because they are codes for serious problems if one gets COVID, but that's an aside. But what we learned and what grew out of this was a huge interest in exercise and its effect on our brains. As you can see, and this is a Canadian graph, by the way, one of my friends over there looked at the number of new articles coming out over the years since 1995. Actually, you see this general hockey stick uptick, and that continues to go up to this day. And this occurred after this article came out. Everybody was interested because there was a big push to say, okay, we got to do something to prevent this Alzheimer epidemic coming. So we learned a lot about exercise and its effect on the brain. And then I heard about this school in Naperville, Illinois, that was on one of our programs, Frontline on PBS, and looking at preventing Alzheimer's disease. So what we found, what they presented was this school with 19,000 children in their school district, and they had just been evaluated, and 3% of them were overweight. The average in the US at that time was 33%. And at their two big high schools, there were no students who were obese, none in their 7,500 kids. So that was remarkable, and that's why they were on the program. But aside from that, is that a couple of years before that, they took as a country the International Science and Math Test. That means they took it as a country, and every country takes it every 3 years. The US usually comes in the high teens somewhere. Canada is a little better. I'm not sure, it's under 10 rank. So, but they took it as a country, and you could do that and competed with all the countries. And they came in #1 in the world in science and #6 in math. That got me on an airplane to go there and fall in love with this place and write my book, Spark, which you'll see right there. Spark now has taken me all over the world. It's actually spent a lot of time in Canada, actually working in Ontario and BC and Halifax, actually, and all over, speaking as well as doing research projects. Or projects, as you guys said. But anyway, those are my websites, and there's my little dog, Jack, who one of the things that I adopted him when I was beginning this work, and soon learned that all Jack Russells, which he is, have ADD. It's part of the breed. When I took him to the vet said, put him on Ritalin now. And instead of that, I started him on an exercise program, which you'll hear about later. As well, Dr. Hallowell and I published our 4th book in the Distraction series, came out in January of this year, on ADHD 2.0. And important to recognize, there are about 8 chapters in the book. 2 of them are related to exercise. One specifically on exercise, the other on balance and coordination. And what we talk about in ADHD 2.0 is that how important getting in control of ADHD is. Russ Barkley talks about how those of us who have ADHD die sooner, sometimes 13 years less life. Because of untreatment, because of not being aware of what's going on. And Dr. Hallowell is fond of saying the ADD brain is like a Ferrari engine with bicycle brakes. In our book, we talk about the battle between the default mode network and the task performance network. Now, the default mode network you hear about is a network in our brain that we see in the fMRI scanner when you put everybody into it and you tell them, don't think of anything, let your mind wander. And there's a certain signature that occurs in everyone. And this led people to begin to talk about the network theory of understanding the brain, because we have this default mode network. And then when we're paying attention, we have another network. We have a whole bunch of networks. We have another one that's about performing a task or task positive, that we're focused, activating our prefrontal cortex. Then we also have a chapter on the cerebellum, which is a little appreciated group of nerve cells in the back of our brain, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But anyway, the way to think about attention is to think about it in this manner. It goes throughout the brain. It begins way down at the base of our brain in reticular activating system, where keeps us awake or helps us sleep. We need that activated. And then it goes up through the limbic system. And it's the area that's involved with emotions and with wishes, with need, with cravings, and then goes up to the top part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. And what we were finding with exercise is that all parts of the brain were activated. And in fact, we learned a lot that exercise actually activates more of the brain or brain cells than in any other human activity. And in fact, we learned that our brains sort of evolved to be the big brain that we have to help us be better movers. And that's what's important. So when we're moving, we're activating our brain cells that are involved with thinking, with understanding, and with attention. The long and the short of it, we've had so many studies done on all across the lifespan, and always what you see is the front part of the brain turn on. It activates, much like what we see when we use the stimulants. We activate the prefrontal cortex. And this is the default mode, and Ned Hallowell loves to call it the demon of the mind, because when the default mode gets activated, or when your mind is wandering, many people with ADD certainly get into worry, get into rumination, get into the latest failures that they've had. And this then pulls away from paying attention. But what we know, what happens really for everyone with ADHD is that when you try to pay attention, the default mode usually shuts up for normal people. It usually goes down in intensity, but not for an ADHD person. It's constantly pulling away from paying attention. And this is a big part of the problem, that we're so pulled away. There's the default mode wants us to go back to mind wandering or fantasizing or associating something else, and pulling away from where our attention is. So that with ADHD, the default mode is a little bit less activated when we're trying to pay attention, but not completely. And the more demanding the task, the greater deactivation usually. But in ADD, the default mode persists to a greater degree, and pulls us away from our attention work that we're trying to do. So the default mode acts as a magnet, pulling away from the task. And what helps normalize this normal relationship of when we pay attention, the DMN goes to sleep. What helps to get it working right is meditation, medication, movement, and being in the right stellar environment with great people or a great situation. Then you're able to stay focused. Also, an important point we mentioned in the book is something called rejection sensitive dysphoria. You probably have had someone on talking about it, but it's where the people get trapped in the default mode network, and they start ruminating and go round and round and round about their past failures, about what they wanted to do and haven't been able to do, etc. And they get into a really sorry state. And it's something that we know what happens in terms of the brain. We get stuck in that default mode and activate the rumination circuit. Now, a big new chapter in ADHD 2.0 is a whole chapter devoted to the cerebellum. Hugely misunderstood and unappreciated part of the brain. It's the back part of the brain up underneath. It is only 10% of the brain volume. what I like to show is this graph of how our brains developed over 4 million years. What developed is the frontal cortex grew, this area, but also this area, the cerebellum, that's where it sits. It's 10% of the volume and 75% of our nerve cells. So it's a lot of activity all the time. And it was seen up until 1990 as mainly involved with movement. So when you're balanced and rhythmic and you're coordinated, you've got a good cerebellum working. If you're discoordinated, it's not happening so well. And so what we know is that 40% of people with ADHD are discoordinated. Some people are absolutely stellar coordinated, but a number aren't. And what's hopeful with the cerebellum is that it's very plastic, it's very trainable. You can help overcome your balance and rhythm and discoordination problems by training. And a lot more to say about that. So what we know is that the degree of physical balance problems mirrors the problems that you're going to have with ADHD. So if you're in that category of being poor balance, then this is going to affect your cognition or your overall ability to use your brain and use your attention to stay with it. So, and many studies have been done now showing that using balance training along with medication is much better. You get a much bigger bang for your buck by doing balance training along with medication. Also, other studies recently, this came out came out a few years ago, but you know that playing a sport is as good as balance training in helping resolve or helping lessen the degree of ADHD symptoms. So we know that activity, that sport, that play really is a great way to make our attention better. We did a study recently, pre-COVID, at a center that I work at once a month up in upstate New York, the Center for Discovery, where we have 365 of the most involved autistic adolescents. And many of them have ADHD symptoms. And what we did there is work on training their balance and coordination 3 times a week for a half hour, getting them to do these fairly difficult and repetitive balance and coordination training. And what we saw was a general increase in attention, an improvement in attention. And for this group, especially the social attention, which is what we were after. There was one outlier there that didn't improve and got worse, but it always happens. So what we know is ADHD in the US is all over the place. At least 10% of us have ADD. It's more likely 15%. The boys, 15% or so do have ADHD, girls, somewhat less. However, that difference is beginning to shrink, and as we get better and better at understanding what's going on with the girls. Then the big news in the past 4 years, has been the look at adult onset ADHD. It was thought we didn't have ADHD in adulthood, and a number of studies came from Britain and Germany and the US looking at people that were evaluated throughout their childhood and didn't have ADHD symptoms, but then in adulthood they sprang up for whatever reason, and so that it became a real legitimate kind of thing. We know that if you have ADHD, a child, you will continue to have symptoms into adulthood about 60% of the time, especially the mind wandering, the distractibility, the lack of holding your attention on issues, and you have less and less problems with hyperactivity because your brain matures and you don't have so much of that. The incidence is 60% of people who have ADHD in childhood into adulthood, and leads to all kinds of problems, social problems, work problems, marriage problems, depressions, substance abuse, chronic underachiever, failure to thrive. Most of the time it's not recognized or reported. Also, we now studies showing that in adults with ADHD, they have trouble with, many of them have trouble with balance and coordination. And this is a fancy study just published a year ago, showing that adults with ADHD have demonstrable differences in their balance and coordination. So as I say, we know that ADHD happens in throughout humans, but also in our pets, and especially, as I mentioned, in my dog Jack, and he was a very ADHD type of kid. Wouldn't listen for a while, you know, most of the time. Had his own mind, was getting into trouble, loved to chew carpets up, did all these things. And so instead of treating with medicine, I treated him with an exercise program where I took him outside in the morning and threw 3 tennis balls, threw one up to the top of the hill right in the backyard. He ran up, got it, came back down, wouldn't drop it. He's a terrier, they're not dropping it. But then I had 2 other tennis balls. So I threw the second one up. He was dumbfounded for a while, but then dropped it in the one he had and went up and got it, and our game began. So we did this for about 15, 20 minutes every morning. And so he could come in and do his homework. Very smart dog. He took notes for me, but only after he got his attention under control. And otherwise he was in trouble. I've always said a bout of exercise is like taking a little bit of Ritalin and a little bit of Prozac, because it does the same thing in the brain. The Ritalin releases and increases the concentration of dopamine and norepinephrine, but so does exercise, as well as serotonin, just like Prozac and all the other SSRIs. It increases those neurotransmitters. So that what we know is in schools, one of the big things that I learned after writing Spark and traveling around and talking about it, and that people were already onto it long before me, especially principals in elementary school. This one out in Colorado had established a program called time in versus time out, meaning if a kid was out of control in class, instead of sending him to time out, they put him in time in, which meant that he hopped on an exercise bike or an urban rebounder for 5 minutes or so to get his yayas out, or to actually change his brain. That's what they were doing. What they were doing was turning the front part of this brain on. And again, this is looking at all of our studies. This part of the brain is always switched on when you see brain scans and fMRIs of people who have exercised. This part of the brain is always lit up, meaning it's turned on, meaning you're using that part of the brain. It's the same part of the brain that's dealing with our executive functions, planning, organization, delaying responses, shifting our sets, shifting to another idea, all of which people with ADD have trouble with. We many studies now, many studies showing that exercise improves executive function, which is many of you have been hounded by people saying your executive function isn't very good. It's probably not if you're considered ADHD, because you can at certain points you can do all this kinds of things you need to do, but at other points, no. So these are data. We show that this is this year, last month, that exercise has a really nice effect on improving executive function scores. And this one just came out about how long it lasts. Everybody asks, how long does it last? How long will exercise last for any of us? And exercise usually, when we're talking about it, is usually 20 minutes or so is necessary, especially if you're having moderate intensity. If you're having intense intensity, then it's probably less, like the people in time in, when they're on the exercise bike, they're encouraged to go as fast as they can until they get their brains turned on. Other studies showing that exercise is good as medication. It can be, certainly for mood problems, but also for ADHD. The problem is you can't do it enough. If you did it 5 times a day, you'd be fine, but no one would do that. No one can do that. One of the best exercises that I recommend is jump rope, because you can do it just about anywhere. You get 4 to 5 minutes of jump rope and your brain is going to be on fire, especially that front part of the brain. So what happens, we have all this evidence showing that the kids that we get activated in the morning and change up their program, having them exercise, what we see is an improvement in attention throughout the day, but a dramatic decrease in what we call disciplinary referrals to the principal. Dramatic. This was a study over a year where we saw a 63% drop in discipline problems over the previous year. A better one was out in Charleston, South Carolina, where we did the similar kind of thing, where we saw a drop of 83% drop in disciplinary problems and a huge improvement in test scores subsequent to that. So we know that exercise has a big effect on delaying our impulsive response and improving our attention. Because even just walking, and a number of you were talking about your walking as your daily exercise, which is great. What this shows here on your left is a group of 20 students in 4th grade who came in. They put a pie plate on their head to measure their QEEG, a fancy way of a computerized EEG of getting their electrical activity in their brain. Then they went for a walk, came back for a 20-minute walk, came back, had the same pie plate, and had the same EEG measured, and you can see one to another very different. The one on your right is a compilation of the 20 after walking, and you see many more colors, and the colors represent more electrical activity. So by walking for 20 minutes, you turn your brain on. And when you turn your brain on, it works better for you. Also in our book, we certainly stress the fact, don't be afraid of medicine. Medicine is great if it's used correctly, and it can be very powerful. It really helps prevent addiction over the course of time, which you've probably all heard about. And I like to quote Paul Wender, who wrote one of the first books on ADHD treatment. way back. Call him the grandfather of ADHD. And when we were looking at Wellbutrin and he was doing the initial studies, we met him and we're talking to him about, well, what dose should we use? What dose do you use starting people on medicine? And he said, look, some medication works in some people at some dose, some of the time. So you all, may have very different doses and different medicines that you've tried, and you have to explore. You have to have some psychiatrist or general practitioner who is able to think about things a little differently and help you find the right medicine. Treatment medicine works, and one study looked recently, okay, it works for at least 2 years. That's the length of the study. It works and it stays working, and we know that that's the case. Also, in our book, we talk about the healing power of connection. Huge, we call it vitamin C, but a huge effect for ADHD, for life, for everything. George Valiant did this 40-year study on these Harvard students. He didn't do the study, but he wrote them up all the time and followed them. And he found out that the long-term most positive effect was love, was connection, was being connected. Our current head doctor from Washington talks about loneliness being the greatest risk to our health. It's important. The UK years ago came up with a new minister, a minister of loneliness, to help combat the loneliness that is rampant across the world, but certainly in the UK. We need to use this to get people connected and stay connected. Also, addictions, huge. 40–50% of people that are addicted have undiagnosed ADHD, and many people are with ADHD are prone to addiction. Currently, there are 2 Olympians that have talked about their ADHD. Simone Biles, is going to wipe up this year in Tokyo, has had ADHD and is very vocal about it. The other, Michael Phelps, talks about his ADHD from childhood. But when he began to swim 4 hours a day, he didn't need his medicine. However, when he stopped training, he got into trouble with his addictions. So in sum, I want to emphasize that exercise is such a powerful tool in making our brains better, making them work the best, preserving them, and especially when it comes to attention. So I'll stop here and try to answer some of your questions.
Thank you. I'm just going to hide that for now. People are quite impressed. I know one people have been asking me, those slides are phenomenal. Is that for the public domain? Is that something we can share? I can share with these is that possible? Or,
it's possible. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm just putting this into the gallery. Ideally, if anybody can just raise your hand, you get first dibs. Anything, of course, as to what was just talked about, just ADHD. Hopefully, most of you have the book ADHD 2.0. I got the audio. Phenomenal. Any first question? Margaret, it looks like you have a question there all the way from. Margaret, do you have a question?
If they have an accommodation program at Harvard for students with ADHD.
No, I don't think anybody has accommodation in colleges, although we have specialists. There's what they're called specialists. people that are assigned to help people with disabilities.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
and they help everybody. Not just ADHD, but all the learning disabilities, all the physical disabilities, to help with accommodations. And there, many of my patients were Harvard students, who had various accommodations, extra time on test. Some had to get tutors, and the action of a tutor with ADHD is always very interesting. I think most of the time what they do is they keep the ADHD person on what they're trying to do. It reminds them that they're trying to understand something or read something or work on something, rather than spacing out or getting distracted. So, but anyway, yes.
Mhm.
Harvard, at every place has a mechanism to help people do better.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Margaret. So just in the order that I think I saw them come on, I had Melissa, Shuba, Peggy, and then Judy after, and then there's 2 questions I will ask, and then Abby after that. Melissa, please go ahead. I'll let you unmute yourself, Melissa.
Okay, so I was wondering if there is any specific program, I guess you would suggest. Like I do a lot for school. It requires long hours. And if it's something that I should be like taking breaks frequently throughout the day and doing that for a few minutes at a time, or if I should just go for one long exercise at the end of the day, I guess, or beginning.
Yes, if you can do it, it's best to do little bits of exercise throughout the day. You might want to start in the morning to do a good 15-20 minutes. Okay, and then after that, have what we call exercise snacks. Spend 4 or 5 minutes doing jumping jacks, doing squats, doing push-ups, doing, right by your desk, or if that's where you're at, or walking up and down the stairs, which is great. Or if you're, with COVID, and everybody on Zoom at home, the thing that I recommended was doing jump rope. You could do that right by your computer, spend 4 minutes doing it, and boy, will your attention be switched on probably for at least 2 hours, and with medicine or not with medicine, it just is, both work.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Melissa. Shuba and then Peggy. Shuba, can you unmute, please?
Yes, hello. Hello, thank you so much for that presentation. It was wonderful. My question had to do with the rumination. You mentioned, and forgive me, of course, I kind of spaced out a bit, being ADD and all. But I mean, it spoke to me a lot because that is something that I have a great deal of difficulty with. So would you mind just kind of clarifying why it is we tend to ruminate and what we can do about it?
Oh my God, yes. It's so important. And if you read our book, and when we talk about the default mode, we mention Wayne Dobson, I believe, the psychiatrist who's talked about the rejection sensitive dysphoria, which occurs in people with ADHD, that they get into these bad do loops, I call them, of thinking about how they should have done this, they should have done that, they're really bad, they're really failures, whatever. And they get into it and it drills down. It just goes and goes and goes. And so you have to interrupt that by knowing that this is starting to occur, and you interrupt it by doing something. Or another useful thing is a drug called guanfacine. using guanfacine as almost like a PRN or used when you're getting into these cycles. Guanfacine is an old antihypertensive drug that's been repackaged as Intuniv. You don't have to use Intuniv because that's more expensive, but the generic guanfacine for is the same thing as Intuniv, but has they've repackaged it and made it act a little longer. But guanfacine can really help with that drive into oblivion that really subverts your attempt to do well. I just had an MIT professor who has ADD, just started treating him, and he has these ruminations, and it was keeping him from finishing his book that he had to get to the publisher. Well, and just last week, I put him on guanfacine for use, to break the cycle, and he's now done with his book. So he's finally got it to the publisher. But and so it occurs, and you can get lost in it. You can get lost in that rejection sensitive dysphoria.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I'm sorry, Peggy, that was you just spoke. Is that right, Peggy? Or no, Peggy's next.
Hi. Yeah, I put my hand up before I was really sure what I wanted to ask because I saw all these hands going up.
Yeah.
This guanfacine is news to me. I'm going to ask my doctor about it. I guess that's a prescription medication.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'll look that up. Thank you, because I haven't had any real, luck with antidepressants, and I'm not sure about the stimulants either. I'm wondering, I wish I could get an MRI that shows how I'm reacting to things, because
that we're not there yet. We don't have. There's not an MRI or a Dan Amen scan that's useful in terms of guiding us in terms of treatment. It just is, it's way down the road. When we get better and better and better, maybe, and learn how to challenge the brain while we're measuring things, then maybe we might get to a point where we can use the scans to guide us in terms of medicine. So I mean, the scans are wonderful, but it's not going to help.
really, you mean if I requested one to show how to get a baseline and then to show how I've responded to something, that wouldn't be informative?
No way.
Huh. Okay. Well, a balance train. I mean, isn't music also?
Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought that up. Music and dance. You have a professor out in UBC. Oh God, I'm blocking on her name. Adele. Anyway, she's a dancer all of her life, and she's a leading neuroscientist on the frontal cortex, on the prefrontal cortex, on the cortex that I showed you that lights up, on the area of the brain that's involved with executive function. And she says that the best exercise for ADHD kids and adults is dance. And dance is a great exercise. It gets your heart rate up. You use a lot of muscles, which makes your brain active. And you also have to pay attention to the music and having the music guide you. And you also have to pay attention to your moves when you're moving in dance, to make them correct, to make them more sculpted. That challenges the brain. That really makes the brain work harder.
Yeah, I've also heard singing because the pitch matching.
Absolutely, all the stuff that is involved with learning or performing. Just as I showed you that playing a sport was as good as balance training, because you're getting a lot of balance training when you play a sport. And the same thing with with singing or dancing or any kind of movement exercise, or really challenges the brain and makes it work. And that's all to the good, because our brain loves to work. Our brain is like a muscle, and we need to exercise it.
It's just one more part of that question. It's like, I used to be a performer, and I noticed how before I knew that I had ADHD, and then I only discovered I had ADHD, or that's what it was called, the issues I was having when my whole life got turned upside down, and I switched countries and lost all my frames of reference. And it sort of seemed like ADHD is like best dealt with when you're holistically involved with, I don't know whether holistic is the right way of putting it, but on every plane, like mental.
Yes, no, the more well you are on those planes, the better you're going to deal with everything, including ADHD. And somebody put in the chat, it was Adele Diamond. You're absolutely right. It's Adele Diamond from UBC, who has put a lot of emphasis on dance and rhythm and so forth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Abby, are you able to unmute yourself? Abby?
Yes, thank you, Wayne. Dr. Ratey, thank you so much. You opened a whole new inquiry for me. I have had undiagnosed balance issues for about 3 years, and I've been diagnosed ADD for, Wayne, we were diagnosed at the same time, about 15 years, I guess.
2003, yes.
And I have, I've had difficulty with balance, and had 2 concussions that might have been caused by balance issues. I've been through an evaluation at a stroke clinic that turned up nothing, and an evaluation at a specialized concussion clinic here in Toronto, and have never heard of a connection between balance problems and ADD. So my question is, and of course I have no medication response to it. I now want to talk to my medical specialists about what you're telling me. I'm going to get your book and read it. Do you have any advice for how I might talk to neurologists that I have a return appointment with, a concussion clinic neurologist, in about a month, as to how to approach this question with them?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. How do you do this? How do you introduce something that they haven't thought of? No doctor likes to hear that.
I'm a lawyer, and I respect. I understand how professionals think.
But what he probably knows is the name in our book, Jeremy Schmaumann, who talks about the dysmetria of thought, and also a lot of psychiatric research has been done showing that, for instance, the medication that we typically use, Ritalin and Adderall, bind in the cerebellum. They have an effect on the cerebellum, and across a whole group of patients, which tends to indicate that maybe this is an area that's positively affected. And certainly when you improve balance and rhythm and coordination, your attention gets better. We know that part of the attention network goes through the cerebellum, and when you are having difficulty there with balance and rhythm, your attention will be choppy. And it's the same way with our movement. When you have trouble with the cerebellum, your movements will be choppy. They won't be smooth and regular and seamless. The ideal thought for an ADD person is to have a seamless ability to think and stay with it rather than getting distracted and jumping around and all that, having too many channels on at the same time. In your head, we're talking about now. But so the more seamless you can do, the better.
All right, thank you. So it's in your book. I will
Yes, yes,
ask them to read your book.
yes. Well, you can read the chapter on the cerebellum and go in armed with, like a law case for you,
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Abby. Great. As I put in there, my two favorite books from the last decade are Spark and ADHD 2.0, which that was released in January this year. Judy is next.
Thank you. Hi, Dr. Ratey. Thank you so much for being here. In this year of COVID, I've honed in on what my problem appears to be with ADD, and I am inundated with thoughts and shoulds and to-dos and wants so much especially in the morning, that I am exhausted by early afternoon and cannot sort it out. And my understanding is this is the corpus striatum that's not performing correctly. I've always gotten plenty of exercise, but even with exercise, my main symptom lately is exhaustion, and also grief, of course, because I'm not accomplishing all the wonderful things I want to do as well as the things I have to do. And I'm not quite sure what to do about this. And here comes a train, so I'll mute myself.
Okay, but what you should do is read our book, because we talk about that. We talk about the ways of getting out of that self-recrimination, of getting out of that. You're on the way to ruminating, it's maybe not a rumination, and that's wasteful exhaustion, that's exhausting, that's wasteful energy, brain energy and brain time, worrying about these things as opposed to going ahead and doing it. So, the big tips are using exercise, movement, meditation, medication, having the right support for you, create what we call creating stellar environments, setting your life up so you are successful. You go from the certain thing to a certain thing that keeps you out of that valley of, recrimination and horror.
Can I make a correction of what I presented? It's not so much the wallowing, although that happens later when I don't accomplish anything. It's that I have so many thoughts and ideas at once that I can't sort it through, because it's all coming down as now everything's important. It doesn't rate, it doesn't tell me differentiate. And by the time, and I realize this is happening, I have the self-awareness, but I can't see myself through it to sort it all through. And I have tons of lists and all sorts of things, and I get plenty of exercise.
And what about medicine? Are you taking medicine?
I'm taking methylphenidate ER. We've experimented. We went down to 40 milligrams. That conks out at 6 hours. So then I take 20 more milligrams, but that doesn't quite get me through the day either.
Well, you could switch to the other, the dextroamphetamine, to Adderall or whatever the Canadian version is of dexedrine. So, try that. I mean, I wouldn't be satisfied with it because that's something that your brain needs to be working for you to put the block on. These intrusive shoulds. I should be doing. This is what I got to do. Oh my God, I'm not doing this. So, and
it's
then
all at once. It's the all at once that interferes, and yeah.
Right. And to sort that out, I mean, that's exercise, meditation, medication. Those are it. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Leaf, are you able to answer a question? I know there's two in the chat I'm going to find. Leaf?
Yeah. Thank you, Wayne. Let me just do my video too. So I was thinking while you were talking, Dr. Ratey, about my father, who I'm pretty sure has adult ADHD. And he, much like a lot of your examples, self-medicated with running, marathon running, long distance running. Running every day is sort of a big part of him, sort of the, spiritual church side of his life, and has been a big part of his life for, I don't know, 40 years. So I do see, the parallels there, but I wonder how this framework sort of works when there's interruptions to that routine. For instance, my dad, my stepmother unfortunately developed cancer in her brain, so he became sort of a live-in caretaker where running or even any kind of exercise was not available. Like, he wasn't able to do it, or it was very rare. And after that sort of 2.5 year period, she unfortunately passed away. He went back to running and started, getting back into that groove, but then had a freak accident on his bike and broke his leg. So, like, 2 elongated periods of not being able to exercise regularly, obviously was aggravating him, and most likely aggravating ADHD like symptoms. So when it comes to this idea of exercise being the best medicine, or being the best activator for our brains when it comes to dealing with our symptoms, how does that fit in with any kind of
Physical ailment. Yeah, well, no, but I mean, that's where physical therapy, and I'm sure he's getting that from for his leg. But the thing is, you can do upper body exercising. I mean, that's what I would say. You can always do that. You can do push-ups, or weights, upper body weights. I love the kettlebells because it doesn't necessarily involve the legs. You can find exercises that really just need the upper body, and to get that going. Anyway, Wayne, I'm going to have to go. I want to stay and answer all the questions, but I think I'll take 2 more and then I'm going to go.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. The 2 that were next, Peter and then Bentley. I don't know if Kathy and Alex want to put it in the chat, you can, but Peter, you're next.
Okay, thanks. Really enjoyed this. Sorry I was late. I had to work. Biggest thing for me that I learned from when Dr. Hallowell spoke was the demon mind and shutting it down. So I get a lot of overwhelm and too many thoughts, and it's exhausting. I do have the RSD. I couldn't take guanfacine at the time. Maybe I'll try it now. I'm in a different environment. I'm on my own. It's different. But I can't compartmentalize things. Then I don't have like dealing with people who don't have common sense. So they ask you as a professional, what's the answer? And then they go and do something completely different. And sometimes I get really bothered by that. And I wish I could just let it go. And then on top, the lonely, but I keep people at bay. I have no idea about relationships. I'm really trying to learn on that stuff.
Yeah. Are you a computer guy?
No, I'm a tradesman.
You're what?
I'm a tradesman.
A tradesman. Okay.
I'm an electrician.
Uh-huh.
So,
okay.
But today I got an emergency call because of the storm, and I was on point and everything went freaking great. But yesterday I couldn't get going.
Well, yeah, because if in an emergency, I mean, you must have read in our books about that. That in an emergency, you're the Johnny on the spot. You're the guy everybody wants. because your attention is switched on because of the emergencies, and that's just the way it is. And so the deal is just try to elongate that, if you will, to try to find a way to get yourself to, I mean, you know, to start the day of a butt not getting going. That's where a bout of exercise can really be a boon. You know, I mean, it can really be something, and it's worth thinking about and planning to be able to do exercise. You know, you can get, I mean, a thing that some kids and adults find useful is what's called an urban rebounder. It's a small trampoline that you can hold on to, and you can have it in your apartment or your house, and you just bounce up and down for 5-10 minutes. It's fun. It challenges the balance, but it mainly gets your heart rate up and mainly gets your muscles moving and turns your brain on. So that's what, if you can't, you know, the best would be jump rope, but if you can't do that, then the urban rebounder. So.
Yeah, I bought a jump rope about 6 years ago. It's still in the package.
Yeah. No, I know those. Yeah, still in the package. Yep.
Thanks,
Anyway,
Peter.
Thank you very much.
I think we maybe just Bentley and Kathy may have the last two, if that's possible. I don't know. Bentley, I'll let you unmute yourself.
Sure. Can you hear me? Sometimes my microphone's not working.
Yeah, no, we got you.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Ratey. Thank you so much. Incredible talk you gave. I wondered about your experience with fast metabolizers, specifically of dexedrine, amphetamine, which works best for me. For years, I had a specialist who gave me all the Vyvanse and dexedrine I needed, and I got through a chemistry degree, and you know there were still challenges and things, but after that, he actually lost his license for unrelated reasons in the end, and I couldn't find another doctor in Canada who would do that. I found someone in the States, but they can't.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. The other thing I would say to you, okay, specifically about that, is to think about adding modafinil.
Oh, really?
Modafinil with your whatever dexedrine you're able to get.
Okay.
But modafinil is longer acting and works differently and is metabolized differently. But it's a good support for the stimulants.
Oh,
so you're having withdrawal of the stimulants because you metabolize too quickly. And so, but modafinil can really fill in the gaps, and you should look it up and look in our book in the medication chapter. I talk about it there.
Which book is that? The 2.0?
Yeah, 2.0. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
You can get an audio version for 5.5 hours, as Kathy just put. I think, Kathy, you get the last question, if that's possible, and then Dr. Ratey's on the airplane.
Thank you for that 5.5-hour book that you just put out, Doctor. I really appreciate that. I have bradycardia, and I have difficulty finding anybody that would be able to find some other medication. So I started taking Bacopa. Have you heard of, or do you recommend people taking Bacopa?
Never heard of it. It may, I don't know what it is.
So it's an herbal, it's an herb that kind
There's
of
some herbs that are really good. I mean, you know, one.
Yeah, this removes the amyloids in the brain. The amyloid?
Yeah. One of the herbs that they've done studies with for ADHD
That might be one.
is saffron. Saffron. It's expensive, but saffron. You know, so keep that in mind. Okay.
Okay, so
I could stay all night.
Thank you.
I could stay all night, but I'm not going to. So, you know, so appreciate your attention and love being here. So anyway, I love coming to Canada. So
everybody put their hand up, their reaction hand. Thank you. It's been an honor, an absolute honor. I've been following you since 2003. What a pleasure and gift it is to have you. Thank you. And you're an inspiration. I appreciate what you're doing for so many people around the world. And at the end, people give their little nugget as to what they got out of it. I will summarize that and get that to you by email tomorrow. Okay, Dr. Ratey?
That'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. So quick, for those that had their raised their hands, I believe is it Alex Zubin and Ella and three ahead. You're welcome to email it to me, and I can, if you want to get an answer from Dr. Ratey. Other speakers have done that in the past. Yeah, so I'm sorry that it was what it was. I'm just going to everybody's got like 15 seconds to check. Just want to speak to Mr. New Scotland. So the question is, what's a highlight and what's one thing you're committed to this summer? You know, to becoming a healthier, stronger person. New Scotland, could you answer that? So again, I'll put that in the chat. What's one of your highlights with Dr. Ratey tonight? Yeah, what's one of your highlights and what's one thing you're committed to this summer toward a better life?
More exercise.
More exercise, like more walking. I should say the SMART goals, be specific.
No, rollerblading.
Because that's Satchikam. Okay, what's one of your highlights tonight there, Satchikam?
Just recognizing the childhood, teenage, and adult levels that I've been noticing.
Okay, but that thank you. Just going. Somebody, hey, Matt Bedford. Matt's doing he just won an award for do a video documentary. What's one of your highlights here with Dr. Ratey tonight, and what's any commitment you have for having just been a happier young person by the end of the summer?
Hi, Wayne. I found it interesting him speaking about dance and music. For me, I've always been somebody that's big into sports, and I've always struggled with the dance and music side of things. And since COVID, I've really been missing playing team sports, getting out and doing things with my buddies. And I've kind of learned to take up. I started with some garage band, and I've worked my way up to Logic Pro now. I've been learning to kind of make some music, and it's new to me. I'm not great at it, but I've been really enjoying it. And yeah, I do find it really helps in a similar way that I always found sports do. So that's something I'm definitely going to continue. Obviously, getting outside more, getting some exercise. Yeah, I think any sort of group sports. I know COVID's still a bit tight right now, but I'd really like to get back and play some team sports with people. Just hang out on the bench and shoot the shit, you know? Thanks again. It was a great night.
Thanks for coming, Matt, and thank you. Congrats on what you've accomplished this week. If it's okay, just Melissa, Harris, and then Peggy. Melissa, could you answer those two questions?
I think, I mean, it was mostly about exercise, but just getting, I guess, a confirmation that those small bursts of exercise, like I usually do that, like I'm weird, so I like dance, like I get up and just move. And so the highlight, I guess, would be that he said to start with like a 20-minute, you know, amount of time, like before you start, and then almost like boosting as you go. And the I guess commitment or whatever is just, I know outside exercise is harder for me to stick to because it's so boring. I think that's definitely an ADHD thing. Like if you're bored, like you just can't sustain it. So just like making investments in the things that I like to do. Like I used to ice skate, so like I really need to get a new pair of ice skates because I have 2 rinks right next to me. So that would be something that would be fantastic to do. I just have to make the investment in myself, I guess.
Great, well said. Thank you, Melissa. Welcome, Harris, and then Peggy. Harris, I'll give you to answer those 2 questions.
Really not much to say. Dr. Ratey said it all. I'm just going to reinforce the meditation and the exercise are essential. And if you're not doing it, You need to start doing it, and the results will show. So get it, start doing it if you want to see a change in yourself with simple stuff. Can't get more simple than lying on a mat, listening to a guided meditation, or walking around the community.
Awesome. Thanks, Harris. Thanks for helping out at the beginning, especially. Peggy, Judy, and then Ruth. Peggy.
Hi. To Melissa, the reason that I bicycle instead of walking is because it's more interesting. So I can't, if you're walking with somebody, that's its own thing. But as a form of exercise, like lately, what I've been doing is just bicycling to the grocery store and only buying as much as I can, taking a pack back. And that's been really, really great for me. It was nice to, there was a time in my life where I think I was doing all the things that he mentioned, and I was, in good shape, and I didn't know I had ADHD, but those were the things I was drawn to do to feel better, exercise and music and meditation, all those things were, and good nutrition. He didn't mention that, but I think it's assumed that, good nutrition helps. So yeah, I'm gonna be skipping out soon so that I don't lose the sun. And
okay, just thanks, Peggy. And the one thing I put in the email, which is based on a lot of research in the last 5 years, number 1 definitely is exercise. Number 2 is diet/nutrition. Number 3 is connection. I know Dr. Hallowell is saying that that's risen to number 1. Connection, community. For some it's with a few communities. Could be a religious group, could be whatever, but that seems to be number 1, risen to number 1, but exercise is still in the top 3. And then one of the other 4 was just being connected with nature, because I find biking, interesting, use the word interesting, I find it much more stimulating, being in nature, being on a bike. Absolutely.
Yeah.
More.
Are you going to be emailing the PowerPoint?
So I will ask him, usually they will, and then I put my email address in there, torontowayne@gmail.com. If you want the PowerPoint, just email me saying, like, PowerPoint from Dr. Ratey. Yes, I will reply in the next couple of days, either with them or to say, like, he did say that he would have no problem, it seemed, to provide them, but thanks. Yeah, so just email me rather than me. I don't like to put them into public. Yeah.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Before you, New Scotland, my friend, are you from? I see you got your hand raised. Could you introduce yourself? Could you unmute yourself?
Hi, my name is Jeremy Burke. I didn't catch all of it, but one of my, I guess, goals or whatever is just to get out of bed when I should, or what I set, the night before. I had a lot of trouble getting up, and I had to find something to work on aggression and rage when I'm overtired.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Your first time here?
I'm not sure, actually. Wayne, I thought I might have been to one of them. I got the email, so I'm not really sure. I've been to maybe 4, 5, 6 Zooms, but I don't know if this group was exactly one of them. Your face looks familiar, but I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the email, and I learned a few good things. Thanks.
Pleasure. You're welcome. Judy, Ruth, Peter, and then I know Sharon's going to say something. Judy. I'm not sure if you're. I had to leave Ruth, Peter, and then Sharon. Ruth, I know you're. I think Ruth is frozen at the desk.
Hi, I'm here. Yeah, sorry, I'm just in bed. I don't know why. I just feel so tired. So it was just good to know how useful exercising is, just the way, before this meeting, Wayne, you sent an email with the YouTube video link and you said like, watch it before. Well, so I watched it. That helped me understand this talk better. And I also read the book ADHD 2.0. So anyway, I really need to start exercising because I just feel like in the morning I wake up, I want to do things. I want to like answer emails. I want to like cook or whatever. Like, I don't want to exercise. It just seems so boring. I just want to like do something productive, So it's just really, really hard to exercise, but I can go for a walk. Anybody can go for a walk. You can walk with your eyes closed, right? Like anyone can do it. So yes, I think that's that's what I'll do. And I like the term exercise snacks, so I'll do that more. Thank you.
Thank you. And as he said, which I like, which my highlight is the the fact that if you walk for 20 minutes, it literally there's that on off switch, just puts the brain on a whole different level. And it's just good for the body, mind, so many benefits to turning the brain on. Yeah. Thank you. Peter, I'll let you unmute yourself, Peter, if you can.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yep. Okay. I'm not going to say too much because I did get a chance to talk to him. Learned a lot. Exercise does keep coming up. And I had a change of medication, and I think, I don't know, I'm on my game today because I got out and I worked and I talked with people. But other than that, like I could just be in a bit of a pit thinking, oh man, future's going to be so hard. And then other days I'm just on my game and it worked, and I don't get it. I wish I was on my game more. There's so many regrets of things I missed out on. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Sharon, I think could you answer the questions? I'm not sure if you had a question. Can you unmute yourself, Sharon?
I read his book, The Spark, and I found that useful. And I've also found that rumination is what I used to do a lot. It's stuck in my brain, and it's a different view. It's think it's part of ADD, then it's part of anxiety. And Sunnybrook did a study where they found that one of the way they had treated people with the manic depression, bipolar, was exercise. So he could use exercise for bipolar besides ADHD. And also I found that exercise was useful for me when I took horseback riding lessons. It was for people with disabilities.
Okay.
And over the summer, I like to do mindful walking, when you pay attention to where you're walking, not just do automatic walking and you just walk around the neighborhood and not pay attention to where you're going.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Sharon. Yeah, I remember 5 years ago, there's a big TDC poster that they wanted people about KMH, anybody that had experienced depression, but they wanted to do a study, and they made it very clear the study was doing like 30 minutes of exercise every day. But yeah, so they just want to find out, like the research is quite clear as to what it is. Yeah. Thank you. Danita, Christina, David, and then Abby. Danita.
Hi. Yeah, it was really interesting. There's a lot of different insights. Of course, the exercise was kind of, I expected him to talk about that because it's his main thesis kind of thing. It was interesting to realize that he kind of sees like exercise as a sub between like a bit of Prozac and a bit of Ritalin or something like that. Like it kind of like it works on both. But the main insight actually for me was actually seeing he called them, I wrote it down because it was a different word than rumination. He called them bad do loops. And I'm like somebody else who I'm just literally exhausted at the end of the day, because it's like I have all of these bad do loops working simultaneously, and literally for my usually I have like this extra reserve of energy for my ADHD. And lately I'm just like flat out exhausted. And so I didn't even realize that that was tied to the ADHD. And so like the guana fasting, because right now I'm not taking anything. So I kind of want to look into that intuitive or whatever. Interestingly enough, like when somebody asked about like, just recently, I kind of signed up with a naturopath through the school, like, you know, you pay less, by the way, you guys, and they recommended that I take saffron. So it was kind of cool to hear a psychiatrist kind of vouch for like a kind of alternative to, for the person that like can't take Vyvanse or any of those things. I kind of like, well, we'll see. I'm not cured yet. So, but that was kind of, that was cool to hear. Yeah, the exercise piece is kind of, you know, I definitely in this COVID time, I've done none of it. And I think that when I was younger, like I was more an athlete, I played field hockey and all of that stuff. And I found out I had ADHD later. And I don't think it's the adult onset. I think that maybe the exercise kind of substituted, you know, for like why it was not noticed. You know, it didn't kind of intrude in my life. But anyways, thank you for letting me talk. It was interesting.
Okay, glad you're here. Thank you. Okay, Christina, David, and then I've had to go. Christina, are you with us?
Yes, I'm still here. Thanks, Wayne. And honestly, this was great because I finished ADHD 2.0 this weekend. And then when I saw the announcement for Dr. Ratey, I was really excited. It feels like kismet. Somebody said earlier how their previous life, they were doing all the things that Dr. Ratey was recommending, like exercising, meditation, and everything else. And then things kind of fell apart. And that resonated with me because this is exactly what happened to me. When I used to live in Toronto, I was very active on the dance scene. I was exercising. I did a 10-day meditation course in Spain. I was doing all the things. And then when I moved abroad to Japan, I kind of lost everything. And then coming back to Canada. So it was interesting to hear that those things are still things I can lean on to feel better. And I'm even thinking of upping the ante. So I'm currently dancing once a week with some classes, and I'm actually thinking of joining their dance troupe that goes to competitions to kind of just first have accountability, to dance more frequently, and then 3, hopefully will help improve, you know, managing the symptoms and everything. So I like the fact that he talked a lot about music and dancing as being an opportunity, probably one of the best exercises to manage the symptoms. So great chat, some awesome questions and answers. And yeah, I'm looking forward to implementing more of his suggestions in my lifestyle to continue improving. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if it's okay, I did the Vipassana 3 times. You mentioned that with Spain. I know there's somebody else on this group who keep anonymous. She's done about 10, I think 10 of the 20-day ones. So Dr. Ratey, he did do a 10-week. This is back in his mid-20s.
Oh my God.
10 weeks. Yeah, so yes. He's got again, he's a medical doctor. He worked as a Harvard Medical School. It was in the early 80s that him and Dr. Hallowell knew about ADHD, but wasn't until 10 years later that they published their first book, because nobody was talking about it.
Yeah.
For adults, especially. Yeah, okay, thank you, Christina. So have David, our traveler from Europe. Which one of your highlights, David? I'll let you unmute yourself. If you could, are you able to unmute yourself, Dave? Yeah.
There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, I thought the talk was really great. I think one of the things that I was really surprised with is that Dr. Ratey kind of commented that the brain scans still aren't very useful. And I think it seems to, we get really stuck on these brain scans. And to hear that was kind of like, oh, okay. So, because they pump you up with nuclear isotopes, which I don't think is very good for somebody with ADHD to begin with, because it's quite toxic. And I have my body doesn't methylate very well. And I've had those in the past and ended up feeling and functioning a lot worse afterwards than what I was before. So to have somebody like him speak up and say something like that, I think is such a great thing, because it's given me no information that was useful. And in the end, it kind of hindered me, and I had to go to a naturopathic doctor to help clear out my system. So yeah, that was a really big point for me.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. I know they were $8,000 on the back around 2003 for the brain scans, but as the expert said, that they were not worth the $8,000. You get better results, but there definitely are a lot of benefits that research that Dr. Amen has done.
And then what he said about because I can't methylate drugs very well, the ADHD medication, and him to come out and say that saffron is a good substitute for that because it's not toxic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying some of that out to see. Now, does he have you do it like a tea or just eat it? Or I have to find the book.
If you Google it, exactly. No one, good. Thanks. I will email you next week some info on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Wayne.
Pleasure, David. Abby, you're with us. Abby created a phenomenal Narantiville garden. It's her phenomenal garden, yeah. Which, as again, number 4 in the list of being well is being connected with nature and gardening. All right. Which one of your highlights, Abby, tonight? Any commitment for you for this summer?
Oh, you know what? One of the best things you can do in your life is become a friend of Wayne, because he's always positive. If you're ever down, you just call Wayne and he'll find something to boost you up about. And it's nice being that for you too, Wayne.
Well, thank you.
Well, what I am so excited about from the talk with Dr. Ratey today was finding that there's a possible connection as to why I keep bumping into things and you know, hanging onto a wall so that I won't walk the wrong way. And if it's connected to ADD, wow, I'm just so thrilled with that. One of the workups that I had did suggest that I go down to get some physiotherapy on trying to correct balances, which was fine, but that was the beginning of the pandemic. And, you know, I didn't do it because I didn't want to go downtown, but now I'm going to do it. And I'm really excited to get the book, read the chapter on cerebellum. And I liked his advice about how to talk to the neurologist I'm going to see in a month or so and say, can we do something about this? Or perhaps I won't even need a neurologist by then if I get to a physiotherapist who's trained in helping you improve balance and see what meds Dr. Ratey recommends for the specific kind of balance you need in your cerebellum. So I'm pretty thrilled. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll pass on some information. Winfred Dole from England was a guest speaker 2 months ago, but he talked a lot about the research, which he's worked with Dr. Amen as well, but the cerebellum, whereas the frontal lobe was seemed to be the primary emphasis 15 years ago, but mentioned here tonight, it is the cerebellum. It's to do with balance, etc., etc. There's a huge
Wayne, occupational therapist that works with balance.
You know,
sorry, you are?
Occupation Sharon is occupational therapist works with balance.
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
One was wanting to become a speaker, and in August, an occupational therapist. Yeah, thanks, Sharon, for that's something quite unique, which is for 80 years has helped. Okay, cool. So I have next is sorry, Anne. Are you able to share? I don't think if I.
Yeah, I'm looking at saffron. That's what I'm doing right now. So
Yeah.
that's my focus, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, not a problem. And then sorry, Zubin. I think Zubin had to leave. And then Richard, all the way from the Big Apple. Richard, are you able to unmute yourself, Richard? Probably,
I'm trying. There you go.
awesome.
I joined way late. What I take from it is just you've developed an incredible forum and a community. I'm sort of new to you, what you're doing. I think that's great. Harris, I actually only caught the Q&A for Dr. Ratey, but Harris summed it up in 2 points that I've totally agreed with and totally forget.
Yeah. What were
Okay,
those 2
thanks.
points?
I totally forget, but I'll remember, like 3 a.m.
Exercise and
tonight.
meditate.
Say again, I'm sorry.
Exercise and meditate.
Thank you, sir.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
yes. Big. And again, I put in there there's a TED Talk. He's done a couple of TED Talks, but one I put on and another one that was done 3 months ago. Yeah, and they're webinars, but or interviews. Yeah, I get a lot from the Q&A here. Thanks, Richard. Ella, I know you had a question. Ella, are you able to? I see the name. I don't see.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, here you are.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi.
Sorry, what was the question? I was having my
Just 2 things. What's one of your highlights about with Dr. Ratey? Just something he may have said, and 2 is what's something you're committed to this summer?
Oh,
Yeah,
I guess I'm gonna read his book for sure, Spark, and definitely the exercise. Like I have exercise equipment at home, but being ADHD, like a lot of the stuff is still in the box.
Yeah.
Like I really just don't take it out to use it. But I'm just glad that he said it because it kind of just reinforced me to actually get going and get the motivation, starting again. So I really appreciated that. And also when he mentioned the saffron, that was all new to me. So I'm going to investigate that also. Thanks.
Thank you. I got Deidre and then Akua. We just have about 5 left, and then we're. Deidre, what's one of your highlights? Thank you.
Okay, just the idea that exercise is such a cure-all, not cure-all, but cure a lot. And I know that exercise is a good cure for depression, but one of the problems with depression is you don't have any ambition to start. But what I found is I had ambition to exercise, but through various habits and COVID and stuff, I have not exercised much over COVID. I've mostly been running after little great grandchildren at the park and doing Zoom meetings. So I have to somehow start these new habits. I have to pump up the tires on my bike so I can do my half-hour bike in the fresh air, I promise. And I have to, it would be great to walk first thing in the morning, but I'm not sure I can make myself do it. So get out and hike, walk every day, at least 3 times a week. Just do it, Beta. Just do it.
I like the energy. Yes.
The lack of energy. That's the problem.
I know there's 2 more, I think. Thank you. Tina, how about yourself? What's one of your highlights, Tina? And what's something you're committed to this?
I definitely agree with everything that Dr. Ratey mentioned about exercise and the brain. And I remember as a student, as soon as I started exercising in grade 5, I became really athletic in baseball. And I noticed from then on, my marks skyrocketed. I was like very withdrawn and very did poorly in school. And then all of a sudden my marks skyrocketed. And in university, I remember, in high school, I took phys ed up until grade 12. and I remember feeling great. Grade
I like your
13.
shirt.
Oh, thank you. Grade 13, I didn't take any gym courses at all and wasn't involved in sports at all. And I remember feeling very down, very depressed, and very lethargic, and it definitely affected my mood. So I know for a fact that exercise affects my mood. And even now, I'm struggling because our gym is closed, has been down during the pandemic. And it's hard. I try to get out going for walks, but it's not quite the same as going to the gym and going on the treadmill. But I am trying, and I'm trying to do the little jog as in addition to walking. So that's helpful, and bike riding as well. But and also socializing, I think that's really important as well. We need that. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to this summer.
Awesome. Thanks, Tina. Great answer. Cool. Akua and Diana, and then Lori. Akua.
Hi. I started walking during the government restrictions, and the person I walked with lived in the bottom of my house that I was living in, and we didn't really know each other that much, and it changed our lives. I'm sure he has ADD, but he doesn't know it, and it totally transformed my health and well-being by walking. And we often comment how walking together, it's nothing, because all we do is chat the whole way. I've learned all about architecture through him. He's 75 and he just finished studying architecture, and we just talk nonstop, and we're so different, and we've learned a lot from each other, and before you know it, we've walked an hour, no problem. And so that has benefited me so much, and I would encourage others to not see walking as boring by getting a walking partner. And if anybody lives near Summerhill or St. Clair and Yonge, that's where I am now, which I've moved. And if anybody wants to walk in that area, don't hesitate to connect with me, akuahines@gmail.com. It really transformed my life walking regularly. Thanks.
Thank you. That's awesome. I'm going to put, it's called Wild Ones Wilderness. They give free walks every Saturday. It's 99% of what I know about the environment I've learned from these free guided tours. I'll put it in there. But thanks for that invite, Akua. Diana, and then Lori, and then I think Bentley. I think it might be the last. Diana.
Hi.
You missed part. Go ahead.
I got here late, so I'm unfortunately missed most of the presentation, but I did hear a lot of the question and answers towards the end. I'm in a different time zone than usual, and I just am totally confused about time and day. But anyway, I think what I know how important exercise is. I mean, you always hear that, right? And of course, I haven't exercised hardly at all, since COVID. And, I'm so out of shape from a year of being sedentary that it's making me feel even more depressed about myself. So I know that exercise will have multiple benefits. But one thing that it dawned on me during this conversation tonight is how in the morning, just having all those thoughts, I think it was Judy that was talking about that, it's hard to even know which one to do first because everything's just going through your brain so fast. If I make exercise something I do in the morning instead of the evening, which is my usual MO, then that probably would help me a lot more. The benefits of exercise in general, but also to do it in the morning to just kind of clear my head out and maybe actually get started on the day in a positive way. So that's what I'm going to work on.
Awesome. Thank you, Diana. Lori, is Lori with us? I think she went up. Ben Bentley, because one thing I was quite surprised, I thought he was joking at first when he said he was thinking about putting his Jack Russell on medications, and he knew the dog, he's got an ADHD dog, but yeah, but he chose to give him on an exercise regimen. But it sounds like some dogs do go on, I'm sure if they're with an expert, but that's news to me. Bentley, what's one of your highlights, Bentley?
Well, the modafinil plus Vyvanse was really interesting. If that works well, that would be terrific. Another thing was where he was talking about balance and how that's correlated with general cognition and the level of difficulty you're likely to experience in ADD. That makes sense, actually, because in my case, I had Tourette's, which went into remission when I was about 18. And people with Tourette's have like terrible balance, as you could imagine. And it's interesting. I'd never heard of that connection before. And that you could improve it by doing exercises to improve your balance and strengthen the connections, I guess, in the cerebellum. That's pretty incredible.
Good. Thank you. I'm just putting this link on. Oh yeah, this is it. I found it. Just kind of getting things. Cool got me thinking. I mean, it's a Facebook group. Highly recommend. I think they're starting up this weekend. They've been doing it for about 5 years. Every Saturday. Yeah, usually they might meet at a bus stop near the Rouge. Could be one time. The Humber River. There's about 20 different paths. Usually it's casual walking for 4 hours. Small grouping. It's a bonus if you go with a friend. But you will learn a lot and discover the city like you have not known before.
Oh wow!
Thank you.
What's that called, Wayne?
I put it in the. I put the Facebook group on. It's called Wild Ones Wilderness. Like I just know that Izzy is one of them. The gentleman name escapes me right now. But yeah, no, he created a program at Humber College, and yeah, it's just teaching people about the wilderness itself. And so some of these, we'll call it graduates, they take the lead. The person so it's Izzy, again, the name escapes me right now. I know he turned 50 last month. Yeah, but he's the professor from Humber that is on these. So you meet, yeah, some interesting people. It's a bonus to go with somebody else, but again, they're casual. Like you don't have to be in good shape. Yeah, if you're interested, I will give you the actual website if you can't get into the Facebook. We have a spy on their cell phone, 416-655. Are you able to share, comment? I tried to ask them to unmute, I'm just going to put the actual
It's
name.
*6 to unmute if you're on the phone.
You're on, right, so I can't chat. That means you're luckily on the phone. That was my sense. Goofy.
*6 to unmute on the phone.
Yes, it's
spy on the cell phone.
*6. Yeah. Thanks, cool. *6. That's it. Almost certainly there won't be any meetings for July. So I had before that we're interested. Most likely we'll have them in August. He was the 40th speaker we've had. Like we broke for the summer last year, and I know in August we had a couple of people that have graduate degrees in pharmacy that hopefully they'll come back again. Anybody else can? So I'm hoping that to me he's my favorite, only because it's the most expensive person to ever get to come to the city is Dr. Russell Barkley. I'm hoping, and I'm sure he will come on in late September. A big favorite for me would be also is Dr. Gabor Mate. I've met him several times. I spent 3 days at the clinic in Vancouver back in 15 years ago. Anybody else think of, a bonus, if we ever had a contact, it'd be nice to have who's on the judge? Mike Howie Mendel, is that the, yeah, who's originally from Toronto. He also, if you just came on for a half an hour, he talks a bit about his ADHD. He's got some OCD, and of course Richard Prince, and yeah. But I think having had certainly the top two big guys, Dr. Ratey, Dr. Hallowell, it certainly makes it easy. So my intent probably tonight is put a little poster together, our top 15 main speakers, and send that off to some big names. There's a few people. One, he lives in Oshawa. He wrote the Book of Awesome. Anybody heard of the Book of Awesome? It was the biggest blog this back about 8 years ago. He did 2 TED Talks. But you know, it's just this book, the Book of Awesome. But yeah, he's actually has a PhD in law from the University of Toronto. He's got an MBA from Harvard. He's very humble, but it's not mentioned, which is part of it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
I want someone suggested tonight an occupational therapist.
Yeah.
I think it would be great to get an occupational therapist speak, because they have such you know, open-minded ideas around ADHD, and I know they work with kids a lot, but I think that'd be a great idea, because I know that's where I learned one of my most biggest things about ADHD was from occupational therapists.
When you say you look at, I would love to have one. I find it's one profession. They all seem super, super, super nice. Could you share? You said you learned something big from yourself. Well, could you share on that, Deidre?
Well, when I got my son assessed, I sat and watched her do the assessment, and she did some things like strategy things and drawing things, and I just watched. She told him, okay, take a set of cards and order them. So he took the set of cards and he just spread them all out. And he picked up an ace of spades. And then he was going to find the 2 of spades. And then I went, oh my God, no wonder he's so slow at doing everything. And then after a while, he thought of a strategy. Okay, maybe I'll do something else. But there's just a number of different things she did. And they know a lot about different IT things, technology things you can use to help with your ADHD. Anyway, they're really, and they're really into sensory integration, sensory processing.
They deal with adults too, especially ones who clutter. They deal with adults with ADHD who would do that. And also devices, so they work with adults too. Yeah, I got a couple.
It's a little melted, so I put it in the freezer.
Okay, thank you. We're about to end, but I'd like I think Bentley, I don't think you had your final words, and then Melissa gets the last word. Bentley, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, Wayne, I was just wondering if you ever heard of Dr. William Walsh. He's in the States, and he used to run the Pfeiffer Clinic with Dr. Carl Pfeiffer in New Jersey. And they did basically, well, over the course of their clinic, they ended up doing millions of blood assays on patients. And they found a number of common factors between them. They were all like ADHD and some schizophrenia patients and bipolar, I think. But anyways, he wrote a book talking about how nutrients in the correct dosages can be used to correct ADHD and make ADHD medications work better. And over the years, he's also developed. He's actually a PhD in chemical engineering.
Wow.
And he's developed. He really knows what he's doing as far as approaching it from a scientific base. And he developed many tests to isolate exactly, like blood tests, to isolate exactly where your genes are tripping you up and what nutritional protocol will help with that. He'd probably be someone that would be really interesting to have.
Thank you. You get a free Swiss chalet dinner if you can get him.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Parker blew me away. I had not heard of him, but thank you. And anybody, sometimes if they have a connection, I know somebody who knows Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote the book The Outliers. I'm sure he's got ADHD. Brilliant guy. He finished at U of T. He was a C-. He did terrible at school, but he's a genius. He's been on Oprah many times. But since, yeah, I know somebody that knows his mother quite well. If you just ask him that-
Bentley, sorry, Wayne. Bentley, what was the name of the author of the book?
It was Dr. William Walsh. I actually posted the book here. You didn't get it from me, but there it is in the
thank you,
comments. So you can download the book. It's right there. It's called.
Oh, wow.
Nutrient
Oh,
Power.
that's it. Yes.
Sorry, where? In the chat?
Yeah, in the chat. It's called Nutrient Power by Dr. William Walsh is his name.
I don't see it in the chat though.
If you go up to
Is it
9,
everybody?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the last 5 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, did you send it to everybody or?
Yeah, I'll send it to you just in case maybe. there's
Okay,
some
you send it to everybody if you have.
If you go to 9 p.m., it's sent to everyone in the main chat, but I'll send it to you individually.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here I see something.
9.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, he sent it to everybody at 9:02 p.m.
Yeah.
Is it Jason Loken?
Just above that one, the PDF that says Nutrient Power, and it says William J, and then it cut off the Walsh, which is his last name.
Okay.
Maybe there's a glitch. I'll send it to you just to make sure.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks, Bentley. And what was your commitment for this summer there, Bentley? You're going to be doing a marathon this summer?
Oh, yeah, no. I'm going to Calgary, so I'll walk around the Stampede grounds. I'll try to walk regularly. That's what I'll
They were 40. It was 49 degrees this morning. Did you know that in Calgary?
49?
That's I heard that today. But
I've heard it's been insane recently. Oh,
it was the hottest ever. But it'll be cool when you have another Chinook.
Yeah, sure. Oh no.
I think Melissa and then David gets the last word. Melissa, thanks, Bentley.
So I'm new here, so it probably has, you've had neuropsychologists on before, but it might be helpful to the people that are newer trying to have those conversations. Like it's it seems like it's harder and harder for people to get diagnosed as adults, and so it would be really helpful to have like someone speak that would kind of guide you how to deal with them, I guess.
Okay, thank you. And just on that topic, was it the link that I sent to everyone? One was the TED Talk. The other one that was done back in March. But it was her 100. She calls them, I guess, video podcasts, number 116. But for her, the common denominator all to do with like neurodevelopmental. You know, like it just happened that ADHD was on there 2 or 3 times of the 116. But everything she does every week. Yeah, I just discovered her actually last week. But it's I'm sure you got the same. Most people got I sent the 2 links, one to TED Talk, but it's connected. Like I'm fascinated. The fact that she said it's done 116, and like I'm sure they're all on the website. Yeah, which is good. Thank you, Melissa. David, you had a question, comment, compliment?
No, I have a comment to make about Dr. Walsh. Years ago, when I was still living in Italy, I found his book. And I think the most interesting thing that he has to say about medication was that he'd done the study on kids that were put on medication and went into school and shot people. And that he discovered that a lot of these kids either had slow methylation. So if they were taking drugs given by their doctor, it would hang in their system for too long. And they would eventually overdose on these medications that were supposed to like help them be more stable. And that was a big thing. So learning about how your body methylates, I think, especially if you're taking ADHD medication, is probably a very valuable thing, because if your body gets rid of it very fast, you're going to have to change how you dose your medication, maybe take it in, multiple smaller doses throughout the day, as opposed to taking one and calling it a day. So I think it's something really valuable for people to consider that possibility. there is a doctor in Toronto that I went to go see, and he helped me out quite a bit because I methylate too slowly. So I become toxic with medications very quickly. So that was a big game changer for me, learning that.
Awesome. Thank you. And because I know a couple mentioned earlier, we're hoping to get like a doctor, like a naturopathic doctor. That's something somebody has agreed to come on. I know Stephen Goldhart has mentioned, yeah, hopefully, yeah, because I know, but we're about to turn the lights off. Let's go. The sun setting in about 10 minutes. Yeah, so it's be 5 weeks before this goes on. I mentioned it's either been 3 weeks to be either a Tuesday or Wednesday night at RAP. If you haven't done one, do get it. It is the prerequisite for the other one's the Coach One course, which is free, etc., etc. But any general questions, comments before we turn this off in 90 seconds? So everybody's welcome to save their chat that you have. One way is when you open up the chat, yeah, you just go into the bottom right. They give you 3 arrows and you can save the chat. That's one way. What I like is you can
Wayne?
just copy and paste, but there's a couple of things that Bentley gave a book. You have to. I'm pretty sure the only way you can access that is click on it now to download it. Is that right, Bentley? I think if it's in the chat, you have to click on it now to download it, because that one I don't think when you copy and paste or save to the chat, it doesn't, to my knowledge, do it.
Yeah, you have to download it now. It said 9 o'clock in the chat, and you didn't get it from me. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's 9:17 now. It looks like it shifted.
Wayne, can I ask you?
Yeah. Go ahead,
Even
please.
if,
Yeah.
even if the lockdown opens up, are you still going to go on Zoom in September?
Yeah, I think like 80% will be. My prediction is Zoom. But for example, KMH, I'm certain they won't let any groups go in there until probably in February. Is my strong guess.
Okay, I'm moving to Labrador at the end of August, so I'll still be able to join it. I'm going to teach.
80%.
I'm going to
90%.
teach. Okay.
That's what you're taking a teaching job. You go for September. You can be up there
in Labrador. Yeah.
I would love to.
So I'm going to have to learn to have a habit of walking in the dark.
Yours. That's yours.
Oh. Is that your grandchild there, Deidre? Who's that? Oh.
Yes, and I have a blizzard.
Oh, no. You're addicted to Dairy Queen, I think. Yes. Oh. But okay, because I think there's this one book you gave us, Bentley. Is that right? Up in the, I think you put it in there twice, right, Bentley? Did you put the same book in twice? I'm not sure if it's the same name. You're just muted.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. I'm turning this off, walking my dogs.
Good night.
Pleasure.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Wayne.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Just
Bye-bye.
email me if you want those slides from Dr. Ratey. Yeah. But again, as always, you can't make them public. Yes.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks a lot. Good night.
So much.
Walsh Institute.
Thank you, Wayne.
.org.
Good luck, David.
Bye,
I'm glad
Dee.
you're feeling a little better.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks. Nice to see you.
Take care, everyone.
Danita, I'm going to send you an email right now, Danita.
Okay, brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yo, good night from New York City.
Oh, good night. New York City.
I think it's hot in some of the states.
Oh, yeah. Do you guys have a heat wave there? Is it
Yes.
Is
Yes,
it
very
hot
much.
there, Richard?
Yeah.
Yes. Just like BC, I guess like BC, as bad as BC. Like I think there, like it's like in the. Oh, hi, Richard. Okay.
Hi. I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to. Is that a Canadian destination?
Yeah. Just I was just reading like there was lots of deaths from like not related to COVID from the heat wave. I think it was up in the 40s or something like that. What is it in New York?
I'm thankful I don't know that heat wave statistic. I
It's
guess